Good evening. I am Patty Sternberg, President of the Society for Contemporary Art. I am very pleased to welcome you all to our first public program of the 22-23 season, featuring the artist Maren Hassinger. After many engaging virtual programs over the past 2 years, we are grateful to be again hosting you at the museum in Fullerton Hall. Thank you to Paul Rader and the Paul Rader Salon for generously sponsoring tonight's program. We are also thrilled to be welcoming Giampaolo Bianconi, the new Associate Curator, to his first SCA program. Welcome. Before I turn the podium over to Programming Chair Jessica Diamond to introduce Maren, I would like to highlight a couple of our upcoming fall programs that are free and open to the public. Please visit the SCA's website, scaic.org, to learn more and register. I also encourage you to sign up for our mailing list and to follow us on Instagram for the latest news. On Monday, November 14th, we look forward to a compelling performance by artist Evelyn T. Wang entitled Layers of Vocalization. Evelyn will be joining us from the Netherlands and is working closely with our friend Hendrik Folkerts in preparation. The SCA is excited to be welcoming both of them to Chicago next month, and we are grateful for our partners in Prada for generously sponsoring this public program. Then on Friday, December 9th, we have invited Suzanne Jackson to speak about her career spanning over 5 decades and across multiple genres, including drawing, painting, printmaking, bookmaking, poetry, dance, theater, and costume design. Suzanne has a stunning exhibition now on view at the Arts Club of Chicago. We encourage you to visit her work beforehand and to then join us in December. Further public programming for 2023 will be announced in December. For those of you who are not already SCA members, I hope you will consider joining our group and joining the Society for, our group and supporting contemporary art at the Art Institute of Chicago. This fall, members are participating in special events hosted at local galleries and private tours and exhibition viewings here at the museum while hearing directly from curators and artists. We offer junior and artist memberships as well as reduced memberships available by application. To find out more, please contact the SCA's office. Again, thank you very much for being here tonight, and now I'd like to introduce Jessica Diamond, our new programming chair for the SCA.
Thank you, Patty. This evening we are so honored to welcome Maren Hassinger to the Art Institute as the first speaker of this season's SCA Public Programming Series. Tonight, Maren is visiting us from New York City, where she lives and works. Through a long career, Maren has built an expansive practice that articulates the relationship between nature and humanity. Carefully choosing materials for their innate characteristics, Maren has explored the subjects of movement, family, love, nature, the environment, consumerism, identity, and race. As many of our members will recall from our 2019 annual meeting, when Maren's work Interlock was acquired, wire rope has long held a prominent role in Maren's artistic practice. In the early 1970s, as a sculptor, Maren studied at the Fiber Arts program at UCLA, where she used manufactured materials to create organic forms, bridging the gap between the two disciplines. Maren's recent commissions include Ugo Rondione's Sculpture Milwaukee, Dia Bridgehampton, Socrates Sculpture Park, the Smithsonian Museum, the Rockefeller Foundation, the Aspen Art Museum, Destination Crenshaw. Her work will also appear in the upcoming exhibitions at MoMA, San Francisco Museum of Modern Art, and in a 2-person exhibition at IVAM alongside her longtime performance partner, Senga Ngugi, the amazing Senga Ngugi. Maren is the recipient of numerous honors, including the Lifetime Achievement Award from the Women's Caucus for the Arts. We are very proud that her work is included in the permanent collection at the Art Institute of Chicago through a gift from the SCA. Maren was director of the Reinhardt School of Sculpture at Maryland Institute College of Art in Baltimore for 20 years. She is featured in the collections of major museums throughout the United States, the Baltimore Museum of Art, LACMA, MoMA, the Smithsonian's Hirshhorn Museum, and the Whitney. And now it is my great pleasure to introduce tonight's speaker to the stage, who's already here. Please join me in warmly welcoming Maren Hassinger. Thank you. Thank you.
I don't know what that means. It means I probably don't need it. Too kind. Thank you very much. I set out to be a dancer, and the whole time, all this talking is going on, I'm looking at this newspaper, and we're going to be using newspapers in a few minutes, and it's got these New York City ballet dancers on the cover of this. And that was my aspiration, not to necessarily be a ballet dancer, but to be a dancer and to perform and to choreograph. And when I went to Bennington College, they said, absolutely not. You're better at art, aren't you? And I was like, no. I mean, I don't know anything about it, really. But I had to make a decision if I was going to stay on and get that degree from that institution. I had to get out of the department I wanted to be in and get into another one I really didn't know anything about. So I did it, and I ended up in sculpture, and my teacher was a guy who, I think he was born in South Africa, and he immigrated to London, and then he finally ended up in New York, and finally at Bennington College in Bennington, Vermont. And his name was Isaac Wicken, and he supported me with such kindness and interest. I don't know, I'm doing sculpture this day because of him and another man I met. When I tried to get an MFA in sculpture at UCLA, I was told that no, you just can't do it. You know, we're not accepting you. And there happened to be a man who was the head of the fiber structure department. And his name was Bernard Kester. And he said, well, I'd like to have her, you know. And so, again, if I wanted to stay at UCLA, that was what I had to do. So I wanted an MFA because I wanted to be an artist by that point, and I knew I wasn't going to support myself by waiting tables, which I had been doing while in school, and I was terrible, and it was terrible. So I said yes, and Bernard, welcomed me with open arms, and 3 years later, I got an MFA, and one of the first pieces I ever made is the one you own. And when I saw it, almost tears came to my eyes, because it was the simplest way I knew how to talk about being a person that knew about what weaving was about, but also what steel was about, and also what, the manipulation of materials into a new form is what sculpture is all about. So I got this piece of wire rope. It was fairly large in size, and I opened both ends, and I did what you might do with a piece of thread to tie a knot in it, for example. I just took both ends and I just put them together like that. And because the ends were opened, the way I got them to lock into place was by weaving the ends together. And you know the piece, it basically looks like that. And that was among the first. You have it. It looks, I shouldn't brag, but it looks terrific. It's older than most of you in the room, and it looks good. And it was so simple, it was just, this end, that end. Now they haven't, it hasn't always been that kind of simple the way I approach things, but not everything can be simple and not everything can be good. And I can't actually tell you what makes something better than something else. But I think I know by looking now. So can we start the slides? And so I'm just going to run through the slides. And, we're all spread out. And because if COVID wasn't still like lurking in my thinking, I would say we should all be together right here so we could have like a normal conversation. But it's weird to have a conversation with somebody who's sitting above you that you're looking up to. And I don't mean it to be that way, but that's the situation. So anyhow, I'm going to, so here it is. Okay. But do you see what I mean about interlock? It's like, seems like really, really obvious, but I guess what I was also doing was saying, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to get this wire rope, and I'm going to treat it like a rope, but I'm going to make sculpture that's rigid because it's steel. So wasn't like, it's not really intellectual, It's just like a physical thing. And then what I found that was left over from my desire to be a dancer was a lot of physicality. And the wire rope was a terrific way of like just throwing everything around and going crazy and sweating. So this is the first. Okay. So you can keep just, like every couple of minutes, just rolling the slides. Yeah. Okay. All right, so then I got other opportunities to involve myself. And whereas the first one, interlock, can be inside, it could also be outside, but it's inside here. And I got other opportunities to do things outside. And this is 12 trees, and it's along the freeway at the section where it goes from LA across a hill and dips down and goes into the valley. It's the 405 freeway in Los Angeles. And I think it's still there. It's been there for years and years. Since '79. It was a part of a project I did with Brockman Gallery Productions, which is an African-American gallery that had this competition, and several people got the money to do pieces like this. And I knew the people at Brockman Gallery because I grew up in Los Angeles, and one of the guys I went out with when I was in high school was a Brockman. Okay. I mean, it's not all, LA is big, but it's not that big. Next. And then I had the opportunities also along about this time to start coming to New York, and I did do that. And this is something, Art Across the Park, which was sponsored by Linda Good Bryant's just above Midtown Gallery, and she's having this lovely, lovely show if you're in New York in the next month or so at the Museum of Modern Art. Okay, so people that I know that first recognized me and gave me an opportunity as dealers, as like burgeoning dealers who were begging people for money so they could keep their galleries open, are now having, Linda's now having this magnificent show at the Museum of Modern Art that represents the artists that she found and the exhibitions she curated over the years. Next slide. Whirling. Whirling is whirling. I mean, it's like dervishes in a circle. If anybody has any commentary, like questions or, like this looks like something or whatever, please feel free to. I'm trying to be, like relaxed. I mean, it's not that there's so many of us in here that we have to be really formal. So if you have something you want to say, just, shout it out. Next. Okay. Field. A field of tall grass, except it's wire rope, which also then starts bringing in a commentary about what nature is these days. And I was always thinking about nature, always. But, I mean, I wasn't going to be able to, like, paint a still life or, well, not a still life, but I wasn't going to be able to paint a landscape. Or I wanted it to be more, physical. But I also wanted it to somehow reference what's in nature, so that, sometimes when you see a bunch of sort of weed-like things that are the same kind of weed, but all clustered together, well, that's the kind of thing that would inspire something like this. And the concrete is literally there to hold it up. And, I mean, people have said, oh, it would have been fine, but what did you, there's slabs of concrete there. Well, they held it up, Next slide. Okay, so there's actually two pieces in this shot, and I think the next shot will show you the one way far in the background. And it's in Aspen, and it's like snowing there, and it looks very dramatic to be in front of the mountain. It also appears to be windblown, and at this point, it was okay for me to make squares of concrete to hold the wire rope. I don't know why, but suddenly I decided, well, and then it works here because the ground it's sitting on is very much like what's holding the wire rope up. So that visually, there's not too many discrepancies in what's happening with the steel and what's happening with the ground and what's happening with the background and what's happening with the enclosure fence. So the whole thing becomes kind of an environment that makes visual sense of a space that, could be empty and cold. Yeah.
With the pieces that you make, especially because they're going to be often outside,
Mm-hmm.
do you wish for them to sort of be finished in a way that like nature does not impact like the finish on them, or do you sort of leave them open to sort of? I assume like if you have anything outside long enough, there's going to be some erosion or something that changes. How do you feel like your artwork is meant to interface with the climate or the environment generally around it?
Well, a lot of times when I get pieces for outdoors, I get the kind of wire rope that is galvanized. And I don't get stainless steel because it's really, really expensive. And I'm not sure it is always made in the gauge that I want it, by that, I mean the diameter that I want it. And I like the kind of grayish color of the galvanized, and it kind of blends in with everything else, like with the concrete and a cloudy day and foggy day and all of that. And it has a surface that doesn't shine at all, and it also doesn't get very rusty. Yeah. Does that answer?
Yes.
Okay. Next. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see your hand.
So I was fortunate enough to see this piece both in the summer and the winter. And one thing you haven't talked about is what's in the background along the wall.
Oh, it's going to be the next slide.
Too, but what you just said about cloudy, gray day. Aspen has a lot of sunny, beautiful days, and I have to say it takes on a whole different feeling when you're up there on a bright day. Juxtaposition of the metal and the movement in the mountain. It's pretty beautiful.
Oh, wow.
I don't know if you were only there in the winter to see it.
I never was there at all.
Close.
I'm so happy that you can tell me about it. Because I'll tell you, the curators never went into the detail you just went into.
I have to say that for the audience, because the back wall experience, where people can see the white wall, but
Yeah.
what you have referenced in the back coming out of the lining the wall area is also very nice.
Okay, so we should go to the next slide. Yeah, which is what you're talking about. Yeah, that, right? Yeah. So I think that those elements are the same size as the other elements in the prior slide, but the difference is I opened the ends, and instead of planting them on an angle, I planted them in the flower bed vertically. Also, I have to say that wire rope is made exactly like rope, structured, in the sense that for each strand, for each length of the rope, it has a wire core usually, although it could have another kind of, but most of the time it's wire core, and then it has these 6 twisted elements around it that are twisted because they are made to twist around the core. So the wire rope going like that is because there's a straight core that it twists around, like a snake, And most of the time I use galvanized because it's more affordable than stainless, and it's more available in different sizes. And a lot of times I use exactly this diameter, which may be around 2 inches in diameter, something, I don't know, like this, or 2 to 4 inches in diameter. And then each strand is unwound from that diameter. Each strand is a quarter inch or something like that, or 3/8 of an inch or 1/2 an inch, something like that. Do you all understand? It's like a very small palette in a way. And so what makes the pieces different or more successful is my ability to relate it to the environment which it's going to be attached to. That's the most important thing, that it somehow lives within that environment. And that environment is what inspires it. So that environment, in a sense, is its pedestal. Yeah. Next. And then over the years also, I've done a series of sort of bushes. This is like some I did recently. And this is not galvanized. It is not stainless. It's something called bright. And it's very, very greasy and oily and, But again, it will last for a very, very long time before it begins to naturally sort of rust. And so this show was very recent, And these two large bushes were placed outside, obviously.
What is the significance of the rope for you?
The rope? Remember when I went to UCLA to get an MFA in sculpture, and they didn't let me in that department, but Bernard Kester invited me to be in the fiber structure department. I still thought of myself as making sculpture, because that's all I had done, prior. I tried weaving, I tried using the loom. It wasn't satisfying, And one day I went out to look for new materials in a junkyard, and I looked down by my foot as I was walking around it, and there was this piece of abandoned wire rope there. And when I picked it up and I looked at it, I thought, well, maybe Bernard would accept it as fiber because it's just like a rope, but it's steel. And then, I could weld it, or I could bend it with heat, or, it could stand up by itself. I didn't have to make tapestries with it. I could actually make sculptures. Yeah. Does that answer your question? Yes. Oh, okay. Next. Oh, and then remember I was saying when I was at Bennington College I wanted to be a dancer? Well, they were so poo-poo about that. I mean, it was like, what? So that didn't, that never happened at all. But fortunately, by the time I graduated from graduate school, this whole issue of performance work amongst artists was becoming very, very popular. And even though I wasn't able to major in dance, I ended up taking a whole lot of dance classes outside of whatever work I had and whatever school I was going to. And I was taught by people who had been in the Lester Horton Dance Company, which was the first modern dance company that was developed in Los Angeles. And my teachers were Lelia Goldoni, and she at the time was an actress in Hollywood, and she had been in the Horton Company. And she was an excellent dancer, and she was teaching dance to to earn a living, because film work is iffy at the best. And her partner in this was Yvonne de Lavalade, and Yvonne de Lavalade was like in the junior company, I think, for the dancer that they both took from, and both, who was actually the first modern dance influence, I believe, in Los Angeles, Lester Horton. Okay, so I took dance from these two women, and I decided that what I would do, I liked the idea of performing, so I wanted to do a series of performance works, and the art magazines and whatnot were talking about this all the time, and I've forgotten exactly how it happened, but Sangha Ngudi and I became friends. And oddly, Sanga's background with dance had also been from members of the Lester Horton Company. So the two of us got together and we started these conversations, and Sangha had all these wild and crazy ideas about things. And we started working together, and we just did a whole bunches of performances, both together and apart. And this is one that I prepared for wherever it's saying, up there at the Walker Arts Center. And often these things were videotaped, so I do have a record of many of them. And this is kind of what our activity for this evening is going to be. So take note. Okay, next slide. And this is like, it evolved over many years. You can see I'm sort of a different person in this. And this is my assistant, Cole, who's here, who's helping me here. And this is in DC, just a few months ago. And we were at the National Portrait Gallery, and there was a whole bunch of folks that came, and we did all this twisting and knotting, and then afterwards we sort of put that aside after we'd made this big ball, and we sat down and had a conversation about how it felt to do that, and about the families and histories and whatnot that were represented in the papers that we twisted, and in general, what it's like to be part of a family. Am I getting this? Do you have more to add to that? Or? Yeah? Okay. Well, everybody was just like, at the end of, for 45 minutes to an hour of doing all this twisting and joining all the twisty together to make this big ball, everybody was in a mood to say just about anything. And it became, and it got, fairly intimate about, here are my children, I brought my children, I wanted to see what an art performance is about, I wanted them to know. And the basic thing about using the New York Times is that in this country, it's our paper of record, and every kind of person you can imagine from every place in the world is mentioned in that newspaper and given space. And it really, epitomizes for me the idea that we are all related. And so we talked about that too in DC. And that's really where I stand now with everything, is that by making this art over all these years, what's finally happened is that I know for a fact we're all related. And that's what the art is about. So I don't know, are there more? Is there more? Yeah. So in the way that, I've twisted these newspapers and knotted these newspapers, and I've made two fairly even circles, one on the wall and one on the floor, I really think that that's my way of saying that we are all in this together as one. And is there another slide? And here's a bunch of us working together as one in Washington, D.C., with this other material that I use a lot of, which is branches. And this Smithsonian institution actually bought this after a while. It's just a wedge in space. And we worked on it all afternoon, and I think, people were really happy just sticking branches in wire rope, sticking branches in, this thing that we had formed that would support them. Yeah, next slide. And branches again, and this time a bit earlier, but with something simple like branches and something readily available, it still somehow expresses this idea of oneness and togetherness and the land. Another? Okay, so this is a little bit off of that track, but it has to do with, like being asked to, can't you do something a little performative for the thing that you're doing in the show? And so I developed this idea of pink trash. And pink trash could be, performed anywhere as long as it was grass. Because I was using color theory, the idea of contrasting colors, the pink next to that sort of grass color. And then I would collect all these, I would buy the pink paper, but the beer cans I would paint pink, and the other detritus I would paint pink. And then I would put this pink outfit on, and in a variety of locations, I would have this pink bag on, and then I would reach into it, and then I would, scatter this pink garbage all over the place. And then I would, leave it. And what it did was, it really called attention to the inappropriateness of garbage in the environment. I remember when I first did it, and I did it in Central Park, I had so much real garbage to pick up first to, really, you could hardly notice the pink. But, and in Central Park, I laid it out, scattered it in a pretty wide area, and then a couple days later, I came back to photograph it. It was gone, clean as a whistle. Couldn't pick up, real beer cans and chicken bones and stuff, but that pink trash, boom, that was gone. Next slide. Just me in different places and times and stages in life, casting it about. I imagine, actually, if you could get a big green field and a bunch of people together and they were all dressed in pink and they were all throwing pink things around, it would be some kind of sort of a Busby Berkeley rendition of the piece. So, I don't know. The multitude, Okay, next. Now, the other thing I found out about pink, and I don't know if this slide maybe doesn't show it so well, but you can see how it's lit in such a way that it's reflected on the floor. And actually what happens sometimes in a room when you put a whole lot of pink in it, just the air glows pink. Everything is pink. You're pink, the floor is pink, the ceiling's pink, it's just pink. And I guess there's some sort of beauty in this reflection. Next. And right now, for the last, I guess, couple of years, I've been really interested in the idea of vessels. And I started thinking of us as vessels. So it was my way, I guess, of making a kind of figurative art. And so Susan Inglet is the gallery that represents me in New York. And she's the one and only ongoing dealer that I've ever had. And I'm 75 now, and I think that she asked me to join her gallery when I was 71. So all those ideas I had when I was really young, I was 23, I got out of school, Next slide. And so this is a piece that's in Socrates Park right now, and I think it's going to be there for I guess just a few more weeks if anybody's in New York. It overlooks the East River. And they're vessels. And again, we are all related, we are all vessels. Next slide. There's a person sitting on the ground back there so you can get a sense of the scale. And next slide. And there he is, in front of New York, New York, where I finally had to move to finally be the artist I wanted to be. Thank you. Thanks. Very nice audience. Questions? Yes.
I wondered, given how beautifully poised all of your work is in the landscape, like drawings, if you have these drawings as part of your process of conceptualizing or beginning your work, are there drawings that are meaningful to this process on paper?
Not really. I mean, they're just, little sketches and ideas and stuff. I did extensive figurative drawing, working with a woman who's a painter named Pat Adams at Bennington College. And I really liked those drawing classes. And very, very occasionally I will return to some of those ideas of, like looking at something and, drawing it without lifting your, utensil, whatever you're doing it with. I feel like these sculptures are drawings, because they're so linear. Yeah, I do feel they're drawings. And I feel that they represent figures and people and, us. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Thanks for asking. Yes.
I see that your art is really close to nature. Thank you so much. Your art is very close to nature and related to the environment. Mm-hmm. Recently, there has been protests against the oil industry in which artworks are the subject of the protest and they are somehow sabotaged or treated like some people threw a can of soup into a Van Gogh. How would you feel if your art is like somebody uses your art as a part of this protest? How would you feel about it?
Okay, I'm not quite understanding your question.
Yeah, I'm sorry. It's like my English is a bit limited sometimes. But what I'm saying is your
What
art...
I'm wondering is the microphone a little bit too close to you, or can you drop the microphone and just speak to me? Yeah.
What I'm saying is that your art is really close to nature, it's really close to the environment.
Yes.
And right now there are people protesting in favor of the environment by using art or artworks as being of protest, like some people threw a can of soup into a Van Gogh. I wanted to know how do you feel about this type of protest in which arts or artworks are used as a means to protest, and how would you think if one of your works will be used in that way?
I guess it would depend on what was being protested. What kind of things are being protested?
They were protesting against the oil industry.
The oil industry. I mean, I don't know. I don't know. This material is used, obviously, to extract things from the earth. Is that part of the reason you're asking the question? Because it resembles.
I just want to know how you feel about it.
Oh, I think that people should protest things that they feel strongly about. I think that's the thing about being an American, that we're supposed to do that. That's our right as citizens, to protest what we cannot abide. If we don't do that, we don't move forward as citizens. But the material I used, it's not so good environmentally. It has oil in it, and it's steel. So I don't know if I could, with a good conscience, actually, although I'm not using it industrially, I'm not using, mountains of it or anything, but I believe in protest, obviously. I'm Black. How else did we really start being equal citizens without protest? And in honor of all the people who began those protests and supported them and, were injured or killed because of it, I believe we should protest. And also because our Constitution says. And also because there's some really bad things that people do that need to be protested against. Yeah.
Yes, in the back. Thank you so much, and I was a little late. Please forgive me if you talked about this. Can you talk about site selection and the relationship between the sites and the work specifically made for sites that you might not want to work in, et cetera? Thank you so much.
A lot of my work is site-specific, I think. Like, I'll look at a place and it will inspire me to know what I'm going to put in it. It's not always that way, but it's mostly that way because if I'm going to put something outdoors, which a lot of these things are, I think they should blend in with what's there. I don't think they should be like, this gigantic, colorful thing sticking up in the space with no relationship to anything around it. I also I guess I think about mimicking what nature does. Nature grows and it looks harmonious. The tall grass next to the tree, next to the short grass, next to the stone, next to the, weeds, next to the ivy, vines, and all of those things seem harmonious and have a reason for being because they're related. And I feel that way about people too. But it's a funny thing. I don't think people feel that way about themselves. Which it seems very simple to me, but it's why there's so much difficulty.
Thank you.
Thank you for the question. Yes.
So using just the trees as an example, how difficult is this material to work with?
How difficult is the material that you use to work with? Like, are you using tools? Or are you just using your hands? Like, it's just a matter of function.
Yeah. Screwdriver, prise open the plies, and then I just put gloves on, Usually like those latex gloves because they make my hands more agile, and then I just unwind it. Yeah. It's there's no technique. No, the technique, I think, the main thing about being an artist is that you have the time, not only the time, it's your responsibility to talk about things that other people don't have time to talk about because they're too busy earning a living and feeding their families and, you know, everything else that's really important about living. But my job, I feel, is, especially now in this part of my life, because I have 2 kids, but they're all grown up and all of that, and I don't have to worry about so much of that. And I retired, and I get a retirement. I don't have to worry about that so much either. But what I do kind of worry about, and what I think I'm trying to get my work to say, is that we are all related. We are all related. It's not like some science joke or class or anything. If you just look around this room, there's more alike about all of us than not. And yet, we just invent all these petty things amongst us to have terrible arguments ensue, and then everybody is fighting with everybody, and you know, the world could be a paradise of love. I know it sounds corny and ridiculous, but it could be. If we actually believed that literally we are related. And every, you know, race that there is, every nationality, everybody's always, you know, I'm the best, you know, we're the, you know, that happens all the time. Okay, fine. But there's a whole bunch of everybody's who are saying we're the best. But everybody's the best. So I don't see why, you know, we can't get together here. You know, everything's dissension. We thrive on it, evidently. I mean, it's like the food of champions or something. And it's pathetic. It's pathetic.
Any other questions? Thank you so much.
Oh.
Hold everything.
Thank you. You talked about how your pieces are meant to sort of really be integrated into the landscapes that they're in, yet by their material, they almost exist outside of time because they don't erode. And when people discuss the environment recently, because of just environmental change, specifically like raising, all of that, there is this narrative that the environment is changing so much, so quickly. And I was wondering, how do you feel like your pieces belong in that dialogue about environmental change?
Well, I guess you could say, you know, if you were really being a purist, that I shouldn't use those materials because those materials are representative of all the problems. And if somebody said, don't use them, well, then I would go and just keep doing the branch pieces, you know? That wouldn't be a problem at all, really. I believe that we have to figure out a way to love one another and not destroy our home. That's what we have to figure out how to do. And yeah. Thanks for that question.
I have a question that's related to this question, but not about the environment exactly. I was in New York and heard you speak in the film about Eva Hess' piece that's was kind of updated because it had fallen apart. And I thought it's related to this in a sense that how, I'm not sure how they decided to interview you in that film, and whether it has to do with your work specifically, because your work probably doesn't fall apart and change, but her work did. And I wondered if you could kind of extrapolate on what you talked about with that, and also how it came that you were included in that discussion.
I would love to answer that question, but I actually don't know what you're talking about.
I saw you in you're in the film.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm not sure I've seen it, so I'm not, and I don't remember the interview. So.
Do you want to just say something with the newspapers?
Oh my gosh, you see? This is the way the mind works at 75. I don't remember, like what went on with the question you're asking. And I forgot to say why you all have the newspapers. We are going to work together and twist and knot until we have a giant ball. What did I say? As we're working together, twisting and knotting, we can continue this discussion, okay? Let me just show you this. Okay, so everybody has a piece of paper. So you go to the center, and you just tear it down. Then lay down one side so you can have your hands free. And you're gonna tear about 5 pieces, which more or less is like the size of the columns. Like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you're gonna tear those. Okay, and then when you get all those 5 torn, then go back to the piece that's left and do that to that piece. You understand? It's okay if it's a little skinnier. Some are skinny, some are fat. It's okay. Okay, and then when you've finished all the tearing, then lay it in your lap so it's comfortable, and then you'll start the twisting. All those strips that you just tore, you are now going to twist into what looks like, I don't know, pigtails or something. So it's like, I don't know, is it better if I do it this direction so you can see, or this direction? I don't know. Anyway, or that direction? I don't know. So you're just like, one hand is kind of holding it and the other hand is kind of twisting it. Yeah. So you do that with the pieces that you just tore. And while you're doing it, it's very relaxing, like, knitting, crocheting, knotting, So it's very relaxing, and I will try to answer your question, which I can't remember. Yeah? Who said Maren? Yeah.
So we're using materials that otherwise would be recycled or thrown away. To get back to this question about material and objects changing, you described that when you first worked with rope, you went to a yard and found the rope, like a scrap yard, and found the rope on the ground. Have you continued to use repurposed rope, or are you using new rope?
No, after that I saw it, and then I got involved with investigating it, and then I realized, I'll buy a new rope from a wire rope manufacturer, ask them to cut it because it requires lots of, tools and materials I don't have. And for example, the piece that's in your collection here is one of those. It's one of the first things I ever made. Yeah. But, I mean, even though I use materials which maybe aren't 100%, you can't eat them or anything, but they do have a real purpose in our society in that they support the bridges that get us across, like the East River, the Hudson. Wire rope is actually used for a lot of industrial use. So, I don't know.
Hi, could I pick up on that idea? Absolutely, it's over here.
Okay.
Absolutely, I know that you've talked about it being used as support cable, and that's literally what it is, but it also looks so much like the kind of cable used to carry electrical currents and telecommunication, and the kinds of industrial wires that we see hanging all over our environment. And I wondered if you've ever thought about that. Sometimes I feel like the movement in your work suggests that kind of electrical current or that friction or the communicative capacities of that cable. Have you ever thought about that idea in relation to how the work is operating?
Well, I've thought about that. Which is part of what you're saying. I don't know if I've thought about the communicative part, but that's a great idea. Maybe you should write something. Do you write? Do it. And it's sort of nice when everybody is twisting that sound, This is like a sewing bee amongst us, Yes.
I thought I noticed that under steel bodies,
Yes.
you spelled steel with an A.
Oh, really? That must have been a mistake. It should be STEEL.
You mean in the blue?
No, in the name under the title.
That must have been just an error. I guess I should proofread stuff a little better. Yes. Hi.
What do you know about a place?
There were bottles of gas and sounds of the light that were non-verbal. Are you used to people loving your work when they see it? Have you gotten used to that response?
I didn't hear what you heard.
I heard it. It was innate. It was like innate.
Oh, you mean like, oh, yeah.
Like, they were like, oh.
Yeah. Well, that's very sweet. Thank you.
You're welcome. Have you gotten used to that?
I've never heard it before. I've never heard it, or that comment. I've never heard that before. That's so sweet of you to say that. Really sweet. I needed that too. Yeah. Oh, we're going to tie them together. We're going to learn how to do square knots. And then we're going to tie them all together and make a giant.
Should we collect them?
First, you have to tie them together, and then you collect them. And we can actually start. I wonder if we can kind of start. Maybe we could start up there and just kind of move down.
Like tie them around like the middle?
No, like this.
If you show me how to tie this together, I can join them.
Oh, okay. Okay, great. So, like this. Once you've gotten that far. Okay, this is a square knot. This is a square knot. A square knot. This is important because nobody ties a square knot properly. A square knot is like the basis of the perfect knot, okay? Okay, that's okay that you don't do it right, but this is how it is right, okay? So the left hand goes over what's in the right one, and it's like an X, and then the one that's on the left side goes around the right one and goes back up, so it's like bunny ears. That same side goes over the left one, around it, and through the hole that's made by it. And you know you've done it correctly because when you kind of gently pull it tight, it's just a continuation of the same line. It's really easy to do. That's right. That is right. Okay? That's right.
That's wrong.
That's right, though. Ask her what she did. Right, right. I'm not sure about that one. Wrong, wrong. That one's not right. Okay. It's very hard to do. I'm saying it's wrong, but it's hard to make it right. It's hard because you're used to tying your shoes and stuff, and it's not the same way as shoes. Huh? Once again? Okay, once again. Okay. Now, the thing is, like I said, it's not the way you tie your shoes. Okay. So, this way, that way. That one around that one. And it looks like a bunny ear. This one on the right, over on the left, through the hole. And right before you pull it, it's like a square. And then you gently pull it. Otherwise, if you go like that, it'll tear. Yeah, that's perfect.
He showed me how to tie my shoe.
Well, that just goes to show there's always something to learn and time to do it. Oh, great. Oh, great. Okay, wonderful. Perfect. Okay. Now we have to join it to somebody else's. Take the end. Yeah. What?
This is not what we're expecting today.
Oh, what were you expecting? Come on. Oh, no, there's some things about Picasso's life that I don't have. I really have to tell you that one. Okay. Okay. So how you doing?
My things are too long.
Okay, all right.
I'm cheating. Maren, I'm cheating.
That's cool. I like that. That's inventive, what you're doing.
Oh, good. Thank you.
I'm doing, someone had to go
Well, so I'm doing those two.
Oh, you're tying them all together. So when you, no, you should have. So when she finishes and just keep tying them all together, okay?
Supposed to be all together like that?
Yeah, great. That's perfect. Okay, so then when you finish, then you tie yours to the end of hers, okay? How we doing? Oh, you got it. Okay, great.
Camping. We're campers.
Right. Right. Oh, gosh. Okay. You doing okay? Okay. Here's one to join to.
She's dyslexic.
Okay, okay. I understand.
Our mind is not any good. Go ahead.
No, I can use it.
In South, that's usually be in the State Department.
Oh, no, it's very easy. Your twisting is perfect.
Yes.
Your twisting is perfect. You just haven't tied the knots.
Expression is so much.
Oh, okay. Okay. So all you have to do is tie the knot. You know, like that. You can't see the way I'm doing it.
Is that the right knot?
So,
Yeah. Okay.
Want to come out the same side. So both strands come out the same way.
yeah, right. Yeah. There, that's it.
All right.
I mean, you can try again if you want. And here's a sample one to look at.
Can I photograph you?
Oh, sure, of course. And then here you go. Okay? So your job is to put this one together. You know, make a knot out of this one, attaching to that. Okay? And then this is an extra one that you can attach to that end. And then you can join them all. Okay. All right.
I flunked. My knots didn't hold. I can't be part.
Everybody's a part. Everybody's a part.
Even the challenge.
I know what you mean, because sometimes, you know, you just get like doing it too quick or whatever, and you don't know your own strength. You know what I mean?
I just think I didn't do the knots well. I think you're being kind.
No, it's not that. And also, what do you do in life that would make you know how to do these knots? Nothing, right? So
I
this
have
is
taught
like,
my grandchildren how to tie their shoes, but this isn't that.
this isn't lifetime shoes, no. But it is like a really kind of primitive way of getting things to stay together in a structurally sound way. See, I did the same thing. But I got it through there, so it's done.
Would you mind very much if I took a picture of you making my knots?
Oh, sure. I mean,
would be
no,
so-
it would be fine.
Thank you so much. Thank you. That's very meaningful to me.
Okay.
An artist fixes things and makes people feel better.
Well, some do. I don't know if Jackson Pollock would have been able to. He seemed kind of like a maniac, you know? But I don't know. I didn't know him, so.
You're, look what you did.
Well, I've only done it about 1 million times for 20 years, so, you know, I mean, you can't do things ba-boom, ba-boom, you know? Not everybody can do that.